Laura, right?
Okay. Another Turner classic.
Turner classic.
Film classic.
Mm-hmm. Starring Gene Tierney as Laura Hunt.
Right.
Dana Andrews as Detective Lieutenant Mark McPherson.
Right.
Clinton Webb as Waldo Lydecker.
Right.
Vincent Price as Shelby Carpenter.
Right.
And Judith Anderson as Ann Treadwell. Now, there's a lot of supporting cast in it, mostly playing the back, but these are the front five actors that are lead and supporting, and then they have people who come in who are secondary and third area characters that are scenery, and then some that may have one line, which are extras, right?
Right.
So the synopsis: McPherson Andrews is brought in to solve the murder of Laura Jean Tierney and falls in love with the dead woman through her writings, his investigation, and her portrait on the wall of her apartment, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting. You know, it's like what is that? What is that when people love the dead? Necrophilia? Yeah, right. And so it's kind of like a play on that. If you have never seen Laura, it's film noir or film noir, depending on if people want to drop the N or keep the N. I say film noir.
Right.
It is truly the greatest of the era, with the haunting song Laura, composed by David Raskin, who was under pressure to produce a melody after telling Otto Preminger, the film's director, who wanted to use Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Lady, that he, Raskin, wasn't convinced it was suitable. The Sophisticated Lady. Have you ever heard Sophisticated Lady by Duke Ellington? Have you ever heard it? If you haven't heard it, I would suggest that you go take a listen to it, right? Was that racism?
Well, let's see, was he trying to use the brown fantasy?
Tan and brown fantasy.
Tan and brown, yeah, so at least he wasn't trying to use that. But you know what?
Starts with a death march before it gets into it. Great song.
But
if
you
ever
know
heard
what?
that.
Like Laura, I've been watching this film ever since I was like a kid. Well, it started off American movie classics actually showed like the classic films, but then when Ted Turner
started buying up all the classic movies,
he started his film channel and bought up all of the classic movies. Then
what's going on, Ed? I see he's watching.
Hey Ed, and that's where we went to watch like the classic films, and. Watch them every year, but sometimes to the really great films, like if you're a film lover, you're like watching all of the film channels, right? And Laura is one. It's just well written, right? And then you'll break it down, but just across the board, this is just like a classic. It's a great film. It's better than Gone with the Wind, which is considered like a major classic, but Laura is a really, really great film.
Shoot, Gone with the Wind was so good that it was almost gone with the wind. It was so good at depicting the culture and the society, the culture and the politics of that society at the time, that it was almost gone with the wind.
But Laura is a good film.
So, so as we were saying, David Raskin did not believe that Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Lady. Make sure that you listen to Sophisticated Lady by Duke Ellington, and Brown and Tan Fantasy, or is it Tan and Brown Fantasy by Duke Ellington. Great musicianship all the way through. Was it racism that made Raskin think that it wasn't quote unquote suitable? Well, good. Because sophisticated lady stands for the American black woman's elegant style. I couldn't imagine looking at that and then seeing, because I was so disappointed when I used to listen to Brick House by
the Commodores.
And I was like, I had a yes, it was the Commodores, and I had a picture of what the brick house looked like, 36, 24, 36. And when I saw the video, because Motown was trying to appeal to a Caucasian audience, who does the Commodores have come out but a belly dancing Caucasian woman? And that just did not fit my vision of 36, 20, 40, 36, or what I love to say. It didn't, but I just didn't picture. But that is what seared in my mind, like, oh man, so whenever I hear that now, so I'm glad the sophisticated lady was not put with Jean Tierney as the sophisticated lady, because every time I hear sophisticated lady, I close my eyes and I think of American black women, right? So that's good. But so Preminger was angered. Gave Raskin 1 weekend to write a so-called suitable melody. Raskin's wife over the weekend wrote him a Dear John letter. Do you know what a Dear John letter is, people?
He was going through a lot.
Do you know what a Dear John letter is? Yeah. Tell me what a Dear John letter is.
Well, in the letter, she told her husband goodbye. She told him the marriage was over. And that's that.
That's right. That's usually what happened in war. During the war,
what people do now on social media is they break up with him.
Right. The soldier would be overseas, and then the woman who had been waiting for him to come back
send him a
Dear John, it was nice.
The relationship is over.
I feel lonely without you here, and I can't do it. And it's Frederico over here and Fred.
So he had to deal with writing a song as well as dealing with his wife leaving him.
That's right. And so he said the melody wrote itself once he got that Dear John letter. The song Laura plays throughout the movie, haunting as the emotion of the story brings embodied in the emoting of Dana Andrews as the detective assigned to the case. So as he comes in hard-nosed, but as he goes through investigating the case,
he falls in love, right?
He falls in love with her through the stories that are told by her, through her writings, through his investigation, and then the portrait, right? So it's a sad thing because he's in love with a dead woman. So you have to see this film. We are not giving you any spoilers.
With if you have never in it, the thriller.
Yes, if you have never seen Laura, you have to see this film.
Right.
Jean Tierney and Dana Andrews. You have to see this movie. Always remember, but we'll get to that, the years of cigarette smoking and alcohol drinking on screen, even while on duty for McPherson, a touch not seen except in Ratched, which is a period piece. Because, they don't believe in, cigarettes and alcohol necessarily being seen. But they do believe in it being at parties, though. Because I remember at the college party I was DJing when they first introduced the alcohol. And we used to be able to have college parties with no alcohol. But anyway, that's another story for another time. The Maid. Bessie Clara. Dorothy Adams portrayed the character. She's Caucasian. Would have been a perfect role for Butterfly McQueen. Butterfly McQueen was an advocate for playing dignified within the roles that she played, right? And even in Gone with the Wind,
right,
she refused to actually be slapped,
right,
as the maid by Scarlett O'Hara, right?
Right.
Who was played by, I forget her name. What's her name?
Vivian Leigh.
Vivian Leigh. She refused to be
Right.
actually slapped.
Right.
They had to work out the camera angle because she said, I am not being slapped
Right.
because you do not want to see. Anyway, let's continue. The maid, as written in this piece, Laura, had more humanity than most maids written for American blacks, right? And maybe that's why the role went to a Caucasian and not an American black.
Because normally they would have given the maid to.
Because the humanity in this maid, and she was a servant, right? Of the servant class. She was Irish, most likely, by the name, right? By the character name, but. Betsy, I could tell that they had thought of it, but they probably moved past it because it would have brought a certain dignity, kind of like what you see in Hollywood, the show that we reviewed on Netflix, where they do an alternative look at what Hollywood would have been if it had started more equal footing for American black actors, right? So that role right there would have been pivotal, right? It would have put an end to the stereotypical maid, most famously played by Hattie McDaniels, and brought dignity to the quote-unquote American black domestic. But what makes Laura all-time great? What makes Laura all-time great is the plot. Even with some of the holes, it still tops the pacing, the acting, except Vincent Price, who gets better as the film lapses, right? It's the wardrobe, the behind the scenes of endorsing products, the benefactor factor, the obsession of the Waldo character masked as arrogance and a lack of caring that the detective has to figure out before it's too late. It's the secondary characters supporting Tyranny and Andrews, the direction of Otto Preminger. See this film like good music and a food recipe passed down from generation to generation. This movie never gets old because it's a classic. Always remember, people, good music, a great recipe, great movies, never get old. They're not old. They're not played out. They are classic. And this is a classic. Laura is a classic. What do you think about Laura? You talked about it, but you know.
Yeah, it's well written. Sometimes, like for instance, like when we're reviewing films, right? Like when we are able to review like a really well written film, I mean, it's exciting because very rare today do you find like really, really good films.
Really, really well written.
Right? You know, so Laura is just, it's a classic. And like I said, I mean, ever since I was a little girl, whenever this would come on TV, I would watch it. And I love like the storytelling. I love storytelling, right? And that's kind of lacking today. And then that's why I like certain actors and actresses, right? You can kind of bank on the fact that they're going to pick up a script that is a nice, gritty, well-written script, right? Like, for instance, like, you know, like Denzel Washington isn't just going to pick up anything. Like, you know that just about every film that I've seen him do has, like, grit, right? It's just well written in this storytelling, right? Same with Joaquin Phoenix, right? every time we go see one of his films, it's grit. There's a storytelling, right? And certain people you can just like bank on. That's how Chadwick Boseman was, right? We were excited to see any of his work because we knew that whatever the story was going to be about, it was going to be a good story. And so that's what Laura is. Like, it's a timeless film. It's just a lot going on. It's complex. It's like the characters, like the back characters have a story, right? So Laura's just a classic film. It's a great film. It's like up there with, that's what I love about Steel of Magnolias. Both films, both versions. You have the Queen Latifah version, and then you had the Julia Roberts version, right? And both versions of that film I love because it's just great storytelling. And Laura's up there with that. It's just great storytelling.
Great storytelling. Okay, people. So let's break it down. Storyline, plot, through line is a 10. Okay. Ensemble cast 10.
Right.
Believability 10. Editing, sound, cover of missed continuity. Okay, editing and sound. In film, sometimes there are continuity problems.
Right.
And the editor was able to cut that by 5 frames back or 5 frames forward. That's a 10. Acting, emoting is a 9. Vincent Price takes it away by 1 point.
Right.
Character art 10.
Right.
The use of locations 10.
Right.
Wardrobe, staging 10. Suspense and twists.
Lots
That's
of
a
twists.
10.
Yeah.
So Laura
and the eerie music. It's fitting because since you gave the backstory to the music, it's fitting because what he was going through in his personal life after receiving the Dear John letter, and knowing that Otto Preminger was upset with him, and knowing that he had to deliver right music within a short period of time. I mean, it's fitting.
Tanya Congress says Duke Ellington piece not suitable. Utter foolishness. Had to be racist. Okay.
You know what? Another person too. Can't leave her out. Like everything that we've seen Viola Davis in also has grit, right? So that's what I would. It'd be nice to see Laura well done, but then certain movies you just don't want touched because I don't know. It's just like
they tried to touch Psycho and they should have left it unless they were going to, do something different with it.
Right.
But anyway, so Laura is a 10.